What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Christian Shad. What's going on, fellas?
So,
What's
y'all?
good, man? A lot is happening right now.
A lot.
Time to tap
A
in.
lot is happening. A lot has popped off. We have finally crowned a champion in the NBA season to cap the NBA season. A lot of big trades that have gone on. We'll also get into another week of our top tens as we see it towards the end of the NFL season. But with that being said, we got to start off with the Oklahoma City Thunder officially becoming the NBA champions for this season with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander completing one of the best seasons that we've seen from a guard and winning Finals MVP. A lot to talk about from that game in particular, but before we get into that, how did you guys feel with OKC finally completing their championship run and becoming a city of champions for the first time?
I mean, shout out to OKC. Being able to bring them their first championship after, having star power in, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and even, for the short stint that they have James Harden. Happy for them. Especially with them being a small market, the whole talk across, NBA and even some in the NFL as far as, small markets not being able to track players and being able to win in those situations. They just show that, you can make some moves and draft really well. You can get your team where they need to be. So, shout out to them. And also shout out to the Indiana Pacers, man. For the most part, nobody expected them to go no game 7. A lot of people had them more likely a game 5 or even a sweep at that. And they show resiliency, being able to fight the entire time, back and forth games. We're gonna get into it, but unfortunately, obviously, Tyrese got hurt, and before he got hurt, looks like he might have did something that game. He might have went on to tear that game, but unfortunately, this shit like that happens. You just seen it with Tatum getting hurt, Dame getting hurt, but there's nothing to be ashamed of about losing that game 7. I mean, it's a tough one, but still, shout out to the Pacers.
Yeah, I feel the same way. OKC is finally time to break through. No matter how they got there, even though it took a game 7 with the Pacers, they still got there. They still finished the job. Shout out to Shai, one of the best individual seasons we've seen in this sport, especially in our lifetime. So it's not a whole lot you could say. I mean, at the same time, this was the best team throughout the season, and it got a little rough throughout the playoffs, but that's also just a young team going through that stage, trying to get over that hump. But yeah, like you said, Chris, shout out to the Pacers for making it this far. They truly made this a series, and who knows what happens if Tyrese doesn't go down, but I mean, they also have that what if in their heads as well. Especially with how he started the game. So it's definitely tough to see such a good series come down, not come down to an injury, but in an injury like that. Because I did feel like that would have been at least a closer game, closer to what we've seen in a couple of games this series, rather than the 20 point blowout that it ended up being in Game 7. So. But they got it done. Sam Presti finally got him one. It's been a long time coming for him since he became GM in 08. So shout out to them for sure.
Yeah, it was nice to see them complete the season, after the regular season that they've had and fighting through all the things that they fought through this season. Even with Tyrese going down, it still looked like they were still, a little nervous throughout the most of the game until they broke it open and towards the end of the third, fourth quarter. But for them to be as young as they are as a team, it's almost like they wanted a year or two early, because you still haven't seen necessarily the consistency from J-Dub and the consistency from Chet, especially this series. So, it's gonna be exciting to kind of see, how things progress for them. Obviously, they've got some draft picks in upcoming in this draft, and there's rumors that they might be trying to trade up to get into the top 10 as well. We'll see if that happens tomorrow. But shout out to Shea. Obviously, like I mentioned at the top of the show, completing a season where you're the leading scorer in the NBA, you win MVP, you win Finals MVP and a championship. Just all around great season. Understanding that the season went the way that it is, I don't think that it's fair to them, and probably a little bit of an issue that we have in the media that everybody's starting to talk about, is this an all-time team and all this XYZ. It's like, we gotta see what the rest of the years look like to understand if it's an all-time team or not. Yeah. So it's, shout out to them, shout out to the Pacers. Obviously we got to touch on it. We talked about it a little bit, but Tyrese Haliburton tore his Achilles at the beginning of Game 7. Kind of obviously was a little bit of a shock to everybody, but definitely a shock to the Pacers, as some of them admitted after the game. Watching that, how'd you guys feel? Tough injury. You're on mute.
My bad. Those injuries are kind of like the worst one, because it's not only the time, it's like you can see it. You just know what it is. It's not no guessing game like, oh, did he roll his ankle? No, you could just tell immediately. And, it's human nature to feel like, damn. Like, as soon as your main guy gets hurt, I mean, you could say, you got to fight through it, and that's true. But I mean, seeing what happened and seeing somebody, as a teammate thriving in pain on ground, I can't imagine that. And I mean, like I said, that sucks. And then to happen at the very not halfway, the very last game of the season, for that shit to happen. Yeah,
last
like there's
possible game.
nothing else. There's no other
This is
nothing
it.
else. This is the last of the season. Season's over, and you get hurt. Yeah, that's tough.
With that kind of injury too, and it's tough because then we've been talking about it for the last few weeks on this pod, just how the East is going to look like next year, and then boom, you can add the Pacers to that now, because he's going to miss most, if not all, of next season, especially with it happening in June. This injury, it is tough. Look, those calf injuries, man, they you got to be careful. It happens it happens every time. You end up with a calf strain. You keep playing, shit happens. Happened to Dame, happened to JT, happened, and I get that, it's Game 7, you want to put it all out on the line, but at the same time, you got to think about your longevity. You're really young, especially in Tyrese's case, and already going through an Achilles injury. It's tough, and then you got to rehab and not rush it, because if you do rush it, you fuck around, and we've seen it. We've seen Achilles turn to ACLs. We've seen stuff like that, just from weight distribution and all that, how much you train on one leg and putting too much. So it's definitely tough for a young player to go through that, especially in this moment. I understand, that he wanted to, tough this out, but at the same time, you got to be mindful of your health. Just like, and I know he signed his contract and all that stuff too, so it's not like he, was in jeopardy of money and shit like that. But it's still just tough that you have to waste pretty much a year of your entering your prime, and who knows how he's going to be coming off of it. He's not a super athletic, kind of player, but still, so it is tough to see.
Yeah, it was very, very tough scene, especially once you actually saw his reaction to it, and pounding the ground and stuff like that. It was very tough to see, tough to watch. And given that he already played a game with it, and even though that game ended up being a blowout, that probably it was kind of probably not in the top of a lot of people's minds that was kind of how that would have played out. But it's tough. I mean, when we were last on, I had mentioned, if you're hurt, don't go out there and play. especially if you're not going to be able to, do much. And obviously, we've seen that he was able to do a little bit, but it's tough because those, especially the calf. Obviously, now we've seen it turn into an Achilles. We've seen it happen multiple times now. But given that it is the playoffs, that to me, it kind of goes both ways. That's exactly where you'd want to push through an injury, but it's also like the time when you should, because that's the time when I feel like you're gonna try to exert as much as possible. So every single move that you're trying to do, you're probably trying to do it extra hard, harder than you probably were doing it in season and stuff like that. So to me, it just puts you at a little bit more risk, but. I'm not a doctor, at the end of the day, there's been people that try to say, oh, it's the season, it's the fast pace, it's the shoes, ultimately like what happens, and, hope to see that he's able to recover, to 100% and, definitely be exactly who people thought that he was going to be, especially given how his trajectory's been. I mean, basically, 2 full years with the Pacers, playoffs and back-to-back seasons, going to the Eastern Conference Finals in both seasons, as well as getting to the finals. So we'll see. It's tough just because it's so many players now missing from, top players missing from the Eastern Conference. We kept mentioning, or I kept mentioning, the Cavs and the Knicks will probably be, the favorites to come out of the East. And now with that injury, it's like, what are we even going to be looking at when it comes this year? Because all of the players between, Jason, Dame, him, and Tyrese, they can come back in a year, but coming back during the playoffs, like, I don't know if that's realistic ask. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously the Celtics made some moves today that we'll get into, but it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out just off season, which has obviously started off to a quick start with some of the trades that have happened. But switching gears to that, a lot of trades have happened. The biggest one obviously being Kevin Durant being traded to the Houston Rockets for Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, some other picks as well as Jalen Green going to the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, that news broke right before games, or a couple hours before Game 7 started. Kind of taking a little bit of the shine away. But how did you guys feel about that? And obviously a move that we expected to happen with Kevin Durant being traded, but finally finding out his destination. How do you guys feel about the team's outlook moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think it worked out for both teams. Just by looking at the playoffs, especially for the Rockets, they needed that bona fide scorer, and I mean, you could either wait and hope that Jalen Green becomes that. He could score, but he was just so like erratic and just up and down with the scoring, and so I think that probably propelled them to go ahead and just go ahead like let's make this move. But I mean, you got a bona fide scorer in KD. I mean, you got pieces around him that most of them can pretty much defend. I mean, and you still have young pieces there, so I think it'll work out for the Rockets. I think that was one of the few destinations that KD can actually go and not like hinder the people around him per se, like stunt their growth. And then for the Suns, I mean, you still got some shit that you need to take care of. But I mean, it's a good start for them. I think Dylan Brooks, I think that's probably one of the underrated portions of this trade. I'm not saying he's a culture starter or is still the culture, but he's a feisty player. He's gonna play. He can play his heart out. He's gonna demand the best from everybody, whether or not you feel how you feel about him. That's just how he plays, and that also gives Jalen Green maybe just a new destination, a new feel for the game. Maybe he can get his scoring up some more consistently. That is, but I think it worked out for the better. I don't think nobody just got absolutely dog washed or robbed in this trade.
Yeah, I mean, and how you feel about this trade is pretty much how you feel about KD and what his value is in your mind at this time. You've seen a lot of people saying that, Sun. You see both sides. You see Suns got fleeced. You see Houston got fleeced. I mean, it really just depends on how you feel about KD. I think definitely after the way they went out in the playoffs, Chris, I agree with you. And their lack of scoring kind of propelled them to make this move because it was very evident that they just need somebody that can get a bucket. Like it was very very tough to come by a bucket, especially when Şengün, like outside of Şengün, when Green was struggling. So I'm interested to see how it kind of shakes out. Of course, there's been a lot of reports that Houston's not done, so we'll kind of see. We'll see how that goes. But as far as from from Phoenix side, this is the start. They're kind of, I don't want to say tear down, but kind of, they're retooling. And it seems like they're going to keep roll with Devin Booker. So we'll see how that works out. But I don't really know how the fit is going to be with Jalen Green and Devin Booker and how it's all going to shake out, especially with a new coach. It'd definitely be something to see. But I don't have high expectations for that squad at all. But I mean, it is what it is. We talked about it before. Like Phoenix has to go through this spot right here, and of course, there's been multiple reports about Bradley Beal. He's being linked to. Today he's being linked to the Bulls. He's been linked to a lot of different teams over the past few days. So we'll see what happens with him. But he definitely, if you bring in Jalen Green, you have to do something with Bradley Beal at this point. If you want to get the best out of Jalen. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that it happened. When KD, of course, was at the Fanatics Fest over the weekend. And of course, he had the interviews on stage, interview with Kay Adams. He kind of let it be known that they straight up didn't want him there in Phoenix no more, and he didn't want to be there. So, I'm glad he got his wish. KD is, he's that vet in the league. He kind of does what he wants, kind of gets what he wants. So it is what it is. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think a few weeks back, I kind of said, KD is not the, if you're still looking at KD to be like the number one guy, lead you to the promised land. I don't know if that's still going to be able to happen. But as you guys mentioned, they obviously needed somebody that could go get a bucket, and given the defense that they've showed, you would expect that continues under Ime. Obviously, they gave him a contract extension. They brought back Steven Adams as well. But my only thing is that is KD going to be able to stay healthy? And depending on what they do in terms of some of the other moves that they're claiming that they're going to make, to me, I think they're the way that they structured the team with the trade, obviously only getting rid of Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green. I think that keeping the depth that they have right now would be more beneficial than trying to go get
Giannis.
Obviously, trying to get Giannis. You get Giannis, I mean,
hey.
if it's Giannis, if you're getting Giannis, but you giving up Şengün, even if you keep him in Thompson, like you giving up Şengün, you're giving up Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith.
Yep.
I don't feel as good about the team as I would if you stick with what you got and then maybe add another key piece for something that you could sign for cheap. But we'll see how the rest of the offseason plays out. But I mean, you gotta be excited just in what it could look like. On the high end, obviously they just went to Game 7 with the Warriors in what was mostly a defensive dogfight, and so we know that their defense is there. We know that they got a defensive demon in Amin Thompson, and keeping Tyrese and Cam Whitmore as well on the wings if they continue to progress. We'll see. It's a lot of depth there. Jabari Smith being able to learn from KD as well, I think would be good. So I mean, it's exciting if you're a Houston fan. It's definitely exciting to see what things could look like. But he definitely has to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing in my opinion. As he continues to get older. But with that being said, we also had another couple trades that have hit furiously throughout the day. Starting with Drew Holiday getting traded from the Boston Celtics to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons. We also had C.J. McCollum being the key name from the Pelicans, traded for Jordan Poole, who's on the move again from the Washington Wizards. And then the Celtics making another move with Kristaps Porzingis, ultimately ending up in Atlanta, and George Niang ending up with the Boston Celtics. So with those three trades kind of going down and it looking like we're going to have an off season of movement, how'd you guys feel about those three trades in terms of those landing spots?
Things moving quickly.
Yeah. I mean, as far as my team goes, obviously we was gonna have to make some moves. The two moves put us under the second apron. So they're trying to, obviously shed some money out. So I'm not shocked. I like the Anthony Simon trade. I feel like that had more to do with the fact that JT is probably gonna be missing the entire season. So I mean, to get a young person who's a good scorer on the team, I think that was smart by Brad Stevens. And to be able to get the trade that he got for Drew Holiday, I mean, hey, I don't know how you do it, but he did it. And then again, Kristaps. I mean, unfortunately, he's just been injured, man. I mean, he after giving his all for the first season he played, I mean, it's just injury after injury. So I mean, that's just an unfortunate situation for him. So we had no choice but to get rid of him. And then I mean, Jordan Poole to the Pelicans. And then I think that's a decent trade. CJ McCollum, unfortunately for him, I mean, he just moving everywhere also, and now he's in Washington, so I don't know what that's gonna look like. But I mean,
knows.
I mean, maybe Jordan Poole, maybe they could be his team, Pelicans pool party, ain't it right, Cat?
Pool party. I'll start with that one because a lot of people are saying like, what is this trade, bro? Like, what the hell? What do they do this trade for? Mid for mid, blah blah blah. And I get it. I get why people say that, but at the same time, if you're the Pelicans, I mean, you had to get off of CJ McCollum. I mean, you just had to. No matter what you're trying to do with Zion, CJ was not going to be a good piece for you, and he was making so much money where you kind of had to play him. I like them getting Jordan Poole. In theory, there is a world where Jordan Poole, coupled with DeJounte, I know he's coming off the Achilles as well. DeJounte Murray, we'll see when he gets back, but of course he injured his earlier in the season. Coupled with Zion, your boy Herb Jones, Chris, Trey Murphy, like these are pieces, and then you got Saddiq Bey that's coming with him. These are pieces, like these are legit pieces, rotation pieces. So I mean, if you could figure it out and get your star player to remain on the court, it wouldn't be half bad. I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it for the Pelicans. We'll kind of see what the Wizards kind of end up doing. I don't know, but I definitely don't hate it for the Pelicans at all. I really like it, actually. It has a little bit of potential. And then for the Celtics, the two Celtics trades, to be able to get off Drew Holiday's contract and get picks back along with a young player. Like, I know Simon's on that 1-year deal, and it's a possibility that y'all don't sign him back.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you still got off Drew Holiday's contract and got picks back. So I mean, it's really just like as much as you get for him this season, cool. Because after that, like you said, Chris, Jason Tatum will be back. So I mean, we'll kind of see what kind of contract he plays himself into over this season, and he'll be incentivized to play as well as he can too, because you are in that contract year. So I do like that, and of course, Kristaps, you can't really you can't trust him. He was in and out of the playoffs. He had this mysterious illness, throughout the playoffs. That was, I'm sure, very frustrating for those inside the building. I understand, like, it's hard to be too frustrated because you did just win a chip with this guy. But still, you're looking at it as like, okay, like, is he playing today? Is he not? How much he's playing? He was playing like 10, 15 minutes a game for a stretch. Like, it was just like, what are we doing here?
He would not play the second half, bro.
I mean, it was just like, you had to get off of that. We'll kind of see how it ends up, as far as all the pieces involved. Boy, Terrence Mann back in Brooklyn, he's out there tweeting that he's happy about it. The Hawks had to get out of that contract as well. So we'll see how much he contributes to the Hawks. Kristaps, if he's a bench player at this point in his career, he's still a valuable bench player. Even if he gives you just 20, 25 minutes a game, we'll kind of see how all that kind of shakes out. But, and that pairing with Trae Young is a pretty good. I mean, it could be pretty good, but it all depends on his health. So I don't hate any of the trades that kind of went down today. It kind of makes sense from all sides, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know if trading for Drew Holiday makes sense for the Portland Trailblazers, but
especially well, I will admit that, especially when you're saying that you looking to move or possibly looking to move Drew Holiday. That's why it's like, what the fuck did you do it for?
Well, I think it said he don't want to play there. That's the thing.
I saw that report, so I just saw that. Yeah. So,
but
I mean,
starting off with that trade, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me why the Trailblazers would do that, if especially given maybe I could understand like Chauncey Billups, like, hey, we want to bring in a guy that helps out with instilling the culture with our young guy. We got a young guard, Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, that maybe could learn some stuff with Drew Holiday. But now you look and see the guy doesn't want to be there. It's like, okay, so what the hell? I mean, maybe I can't. I mean, maybe a team that like the Lakers or something,
Clippers,
could be trying to trade for him, and you get a couple pieces off that. But it just remains to be seen. It doesn't make too much sense to me. But on the Celtics side, obviously getting a young guard that can put up points in bunches. It sounds like Jaylen Brown might be on the trade block. I don't know how real that is, or if that's just more so the Celtics are moving stuff and they just want to continue the same narratives about Jaylen Brown. If they do trade Jaylen Brown, I imagine that we probably will see him get signed back pretty quickly, or signed to an extension pretty quickly. But if they don't, I think it's a good trade, for Jaylen Brown specifically, that you have a guy that is kind of a running mate in terms of the scoring load with you. So you have an opportunity this season to kind of show, what you really can or cannot be, or if you're kind of perfect in the role that you are now. So good for them. I don't understand how they also get picks with that, but hey, whatever. But
delusion.
But Chris Stapps, I think I also like him going to Atlanta. If he is obviously able to stay healthy, Atlanta's building a pretty nice team, honestly. They had a couple injuries last year, specifically to Jalen Johnson, that kind of hurt, and in terms of what progress we would have seen from him. But the early look was that he was playing kind of well. So now they've got a little bit of depth. Obviously getting depth in the front court was something that they've been looking for some time. With the situation that they had with Clint Capella and stuff like that. So and Niang going to the Celtics, he's a good locker room dude, as well as he'll mix it up. I mean, he's not the best defender. He's not necessarily fleet of foot, but he can definitely get on scoring runs. Definitely can get hot from the 3-point line at any point in time, and then can make some ugly, unorthodox shots in the paint. But definitely a good locker room guy. And I mean, Terrence Mann. I mean, right now Brooklyn's not not hitting on too much. So I mean, you're just there.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But finally with Jordan Poole, I love the trade, honestly. But it also seems like the past few years I've been saying that I like the trades from the Pelicans that don't end up working out. So it remains to be seen how it goes. Obviously bringing Joe Dumars over there, got some new leadership. So we'll see if that if things turn around for Jordan Poole. Obviously, not to say he's obviously been playing well, especially this year. He played well comparatively to his first year with Washington. But, there's still some stuff. Obviously, there's probably a stigma that he has amongst the players in the league, that watched the man get punched and, that was it, obviously. So there's definitely some stuff like, an earning of respect. I imagine that he's still probably going through. I think with the team that they have now, especially, with or without DeJounte Murray, him being paired with Herb Jones or DeJounte Murray, depending on how he looks when he gets back, I think is also helpful in the backcourt, where he's not having to, necessarily guard the best player in the backcourt or anything like that. So it would be nice to see if they can get a veteran point guard. I don't know if there's, that is necessarily something that's, easily available. Obviously Jose Alvarado is there, but getting a little bit more of a steady hand would be good for them, for him and Zion. But it would be nice to see both of them kind of, Zion stay healthy and revitalize his career, and them kind of do it together. It almost kind of makes sense, in a sense, especially if you are trying to build anything with Zion. I think it's definitely a good lottery ticket pool, going with Jordan Poole. So, yeah. So we'll see. It sounds like, basically, Wendy keeps doing the check out this team, keep a close eye on this team. It seems like every analyst is saying, some form of this offseason is going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot of movement in this offseason. Obviously, Giannis, we thought might not be on the move, and then he makes he made a tweet when KD got traded to the Houston Rockets. Obviously, he likes to do his trolling and stuff like that. But draft is tomorrow, so anything can happen on the draft. Obviously, we expect the first. Basically, it sounds like the first two picks are a lock. With Cooper Flag going to Dallas and Dylan Harper going to the San Antonio Spurs, but with Dylan Harper going to the Spurs in the draft, if that's supposed to be set, it starts to become interesting in what the Spurs will do, because now you're 3 guards deep with a guy that just won Rookie of the Year, the second overall pick, and a superstar, or not a superstar, but an all-star player that you just traded for, De'Aaron Fox. So what happens there? Are they in the Giannis sweepstakes? I don't really know what other superstars, quote-unquote superstars, could be on the block or could be on the move. Anybody coming to mind for you guys in terms of a surprise outside of the Giannis's? I guess Jaylen Brown, if you want to say him. I can't think of anybody else that you just, appears to be on the move, unless Devin Booker.
I was gonna say Devin Booker or maybe even PG.
I was saying PG, but then you hear those, reports that they're going to give it another shot there.
We'll see.
It's the Sixers, so but at the same time, that plays into if you're Daryl Morey and that staff and you're looking around, that goes to what we said about the East. You're looking around, we're like, okay, if Joel could just stay, come on, like give us something. we can easily in their head easily be a top 4 seed, make it to the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. But so that's probably their mindset, honestly. Definitely the Tatum injury, Tyrese injury, Dame injury impacted what PG is doing this offseason. So I think he stays.
I know they fired a coach, but y'all think it's a chance New York move off of somebody? Or they just gonna try to get a coach and run it straight back?
I think it would make sense for them to probably. It would have to be, in my opinion, OG or Mikal Bridges. I think it would make sense to move off of one of them to try to build your depth up. But at the same time, like, what are you taking, like 10% of the return on Mikal Bridges that you gave up?
Yeah, that's true.
It just gets kind of tough. But and then especially with you giving up, both of them, like, who comes in as a starter? You just gave up Dante DiVincenzo, so but it would make sense for them to try to get some depth, I guess. Some teams would definitely give up some quality player. I don't know about quality, but definitely some players for OG Anunoby for sure. Both of them for sure. Honestly, honestly, you could always use some wing players.
Looking around though, there aren't many. I think you mentioned Shy a couple weeks ago about DeMar DeRozan, but does he want to move? Like, does and what do you get for him? Is it worth it at that point?
Exactly.
for what you get for him, compared to just running it with him and keeping him and Zach. So,
I don't know. We'll see. We still got. There's obviously the possibility of Bam now with the Miami, fumbling, getting KD.
Which I don't even know why they thought that was going to happen anyway. Like, why we
I
keep
don't.
talking ourselves to Miami being any kind of active,
Yeah,
like in these top stars?
like people are like, oh, they wouldn't give up Haywood, Highsmith, and Jaime Jaquez. Like, they're not better. Neither of them are better than Jalen Green. So, like, if Jalen Green's on the board, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just too black and white. And shit. Neither of them are better than Dylan Brooks if we're keeping it a bean. So, like,
that's an argument. That is definitely an argument.
So, I don't know.
RJ Barrett's been a name out there right now, so we'll kind of see what happens with him and the Raptors.
I would honestly like to see him go. I would have liked to see him go to the Pelicans. I don't know how feasible that is now, but him getting back with Zion, I think would have been a good for both of their careers. But once again, I don't know how feasible that is now. It seems like he might end up in Brooklyn. So, just whatever hodgepodge they're putting together over there. So. They're just throwing players together. So we'll see what Brooklyn ends up doing. But switching gears to the NFL side, obviously we went through our top 10s, starting with safeties last week. Keeping it in the DB room, we'll go ahead and get into corners. Since there was a little bit of a mix between safeties that get into the slot into that drop down into the box, I figured we kind of keep the trend going with cornerbacks if you want to include more of a slot corner as well, as opposed to splitting them up and giving multiple 10s. So, Chris, you want to go ahead and get us kicked off?
Yeah, man. So for my 10, start with the guy who just got traded. Who just got signed. My bad. Jair Alexander. He still makes my list, man. He's a great player. He's a dominant player. It's just injuries as always. But so this projection on if these guys can stay healthy. But if he can stay healthy, we already said it last week. Him in that Ravens backfield, that's just going to be some crazy shit going on. It should be a top defense this year. And adding him, that's just gonna make them much better. Next I have J.C. Horn. He's been really good since he's been in the league. He's still a young player. Again, this is another guy that's just injuries, man. Seem like a lot of DBs get injured often, but I believe he's still a good player. If he stay healthy, he's gonna be up there with everybody. Next, Denzel Ward. I feel like he's a very quiet player as far as most people not really talking about him as a top corner. As with the Browns, man, he's been dominant like every year. Like he's up there. He's one of them corners that quarterbacks try to shy away from, but I feel like he just don't get enough recognition for what he do with the Browns, and maybe because the Browns is a shitty organization. I don't. Maybe it's that, but he's still a good corner to me. And then I'm about to run off some young boys. Christian Gonzalez, man. That's a dog right there. Again, that's one of the things where play for the Patriots. Tom Brady gone, Bill Belichick gone. Kind of the mystique is gone from over there. So I feel like a lot of people don't pay attention as much to certain teams, and Patriots being one of them now because they're trying to rebuild or whatnot. But no, he's a very, very good corner. Another young guy, Jalen Johnson. He with the Bears. Probably their best defender in my opinion. They got some good D linemen, but I think he's probably their best defensive player on their team. They just have some unfortunate mishaps for their offense. Defense played pretty well last year, but he's gonna be out there. As far as getting a notoriety, especially with the division he's in. Then just playing with the Bears in general, you're gonna get that notoriety. Next guy I got on my list is Derek Stingley. Man, what a year he had last year. It seemed like every time we turn around, we talk about the Texans, he getting a pick or some shit he doing. That's what it seemed like all last year. But another good young guy. He's especially for him, is like I don't know if y'all remember like how he kind of fell in the draft a little bit after being hurt in college or whatnot. But he I mean, he's a dominant player. And then the one slot corner I do have on there, he plays everywhere, but he mostly was in the slot in general. But that's Trent McDuffie. He's one of the players that actually travels a lot. He can go in the slot, he can go outside. He started I want to say he started in the slot when he first came, but either way, he's a all pro corner, and he played inside and outside, so that's very useful for Kansas City. And then I got Sauce Gardner on there. I don't think he's the top corner. I don't think he's the number one corner in the league, even though some people like to say that. That's that name. That's what it is, just a name. I don't think he's a top corner, but he's a good corner. He's a very good corner. He makes plays. He very handsy. Get his hands on the football. And then I still got Jalen Ramsey up there. And I think that's more so the fact that he has been able to transition from just playing strictly outside corner to being able to play inside, being able to rotate around in safety. I still think he's very valuable. Whatever team gets him, it's gonna make a difference wherever team he goes. He's gonna make a difference on that team, so he has to be up there. And obviously, my number one is PS2, man. I mean, Pat Surtain, yeah. And that nigga fire, bro. Fuck all that shit. That nigga fire, man. But in my opinion, he's the best corner in the league right now. So.
Yeah. I respect your list. I like it. It's this one, I thought the safeties were tough. This one is really tough. I'm not gonna lie. Trying to make a top 10 list with some of these guys. I'm gonna go top down because I got a couple of honorable mentions I got just named.
Hey, I was gonna do that. I was gonna do honorable mentions. It is a lot of niggas still left on the board.
Yeah. So obviously, defensive player of the year, Patrick Surtain, got to be top guy. Asked to travel, asked to guard, the top guy, and he did it at elite level. He's that guy that Denver's defense depended on. He's a big part of what they do, and why that defense was so good last year. So shout out to Patrick Surtain, man, especially being still so young. Bright future. I got Derek Stingley after that. Ball production is crazy. 12 picks the last couple of years. It's like, some of them, okay. You kind of question, how much is that a receiver selling? How much is a quarterback selling? But he finds a way to the ball, man. He's a ball magnet. You got to appreciate that, especially on the Houston team that needs turnovers like that. So, shout out to Derek Stingley. I got Marlon Humphrey. He's another one that's kind of hybrid outside slot. Definitely will be in the slot a lot more, especially after this Jair Alexander addition. So excited to see how he contributes, how he moves around. I think he's still a top corner in the league. I got Sauce on my list too, Chris. Definitely not the top corner, but like you said, he's still sticky in coverage. He forced a lot of incompletion, not a lot of ball production per se and interceptions, but he's still, like I said, with Pat, he's still a big part of what that Jets defense does. After that, Christian Gonzalez, same kind of thing. Of course, we missed pretty much a year of his growth. Otherwise, I feel like he would be ahead of where he is now on my list. But another season away from that injury, another season, kind of you pair him, with a decent pass rush, which should be a decent pass rush this year. You bring in guys like Landry. You bring in you drafted one of my favorite players in Brady Swinson that came from LSU. We'll see how that goes, but I think the Patriots will be a force to be reckoned with sooner rather than later. They made a lot of moves this season. We'll see if it kind of pans out, but eventually they'll get right. Trent McDuffie's also on my list, Chris. Just out of respect, a lot of people had a lot of eyes on him. Like, what is he going to do this season? Now that Snead wasn't there, and he's moving, around outside mainly, and he finally got his first couple of interceptions this season. So that was cool to see some ball production
until you saw Cortland Sutton.
Well, and look, Cortland Sutton do that to a lot of DBs. Man. He don't get enough respect for what he does. Hey. But Trent McDuffie definitely on my list. Denzel Ward also, Chris, on my list for the Browns. Big part of what they do. he does get overlooked, I feel like, a little bit. He has had some injuries too, of course. So we'll, as long as he can stay healthy, as long as his head can stay right, he'll definitely be, produce. I got Christian Benford at it was at 8 for the Bills. I think he's just an awesome cornerback. Just coverage skills, elite. We've seen him just take away parts of the field at times. Devin Witherspoon at 9 for me. His versatility, just for that Seattle defense, a big part of what they do. We'll kind of see like how that looks this season, especially with the addition of Nick Emmanwori, which we talked about a little bit too on this pod. But we'll see how Devin Witherspoon kind of progresses, And then I got Jalen Johnson at 10 for the Bears as well. So we got a lot of carryover, Chris, but it's a lot of good corners. Like a couple of my, like Quinyon, amazing season. It took him a little bit to get started, but once he did, it was like, and he's a Super Bowl champion. So you got him on there. J.C. Horn was on my honorable mentions. He has to stay healthy for them. And that was kind of what I was talking about last week with them, or a couple weeks ago, I think, with them possibly getting Ramsey, being in the Ramsey sweepstakes. I feel like he's if he has another injury, that defensive backfield is fucked. So that's how important he is to this team. So it's not going unnoticed. And I gotta throw my boy AJ and Terrell in there.
I'm about to say where AJ at, man.
As an honorable mention, I couldn't sneak it to the top 10. I couldn't do it because it was just. But we'll kind of see how the defensive scheme kind of plays to his strengths. He played a lot more man coverage the later half of last season. He was matched up against guys like Terry McLaurin. Pretty much shut him down. He did a damn good job on Justin Jefferson in the Minnesota game. So AJ Terrell still young-ish, 26. So he just got paid before last season. So I gotta just mention him. But yeah.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and start mine off with Patrick Surtain as well. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year. Basically been the prototype for what you want in a corner since he's into the league. Basically what everybody's trying to model their game after. Dude that doesn't just get beat really at all, especially since his early part of his career. I also had Derek Stingley on my list. Obviously coming off an All-Pro season. Excellent player, been excellent since his freshman year in college. Obviously, he had one down year in college, and then once he got to the league, he's once he put it together. I mean, it's he, like you mentioned, he's been a ball magnet. I think about the Dolphins game last year where he got Tariq twice.
That was
two
game
crazy acrobatic interceptions as well. So ball magnet, obviously has the body control to get some of the interceptions that he does as well. I also have Sauce Gardner on my list. Been a dog since he came into the league. I don't know where obviously I think Patrick Surtain is the best corner in the league. I mean, I think when you win Defensive Player of the Year, you can't kind of go unquestioned. But Sauce Gardner, definitely one of the ones up there. I do have Quinyon on my list as well. Having the ability to have, obviously the Eagles pass rush that they've had over the past few years, given their, confidence in them, releasing some of the guys that they released as well. Obviously they lost Darius Slay as well as Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, if you want to say James Bradbury, but they lost him as well. But obviously they're confident for a reason. So I went with Quinyon as well. I do have Marlon Humphrey on my list. Given the depth that they now have in the defensive backfield, obviously with how things went for the Ravens last year in terms of turning around their defense, he's also somebody that, when we really want to talk about a ball magnet, we're talking about a guy that, forces fumbles, blitzes, gets interceptions, pick sixes. He's always around the ball, always turning the ball over, always making a big play. So, Marlon Humphrey, I've got on my list. I've also got Jalen Johnson on my list, continuing his successes over the past few seasons. Hopefully the Bears are better in terms of, what they look like this season. Obviously, the defense was solid over the past few seasons, but having everything, hopefully be in cohesion between offense and defense. Hopefully, that continues the success. And then for my last couple, I have Paulson Adebo to kind of go in conjunction with my the having the safety from Miami being on my list last year, or from Miami's team last year being on my list on the safeties last week. I do think that with the additions that they made during free agency, and then obviously the additions that they've made on the D line, I think that he continues his success. His biggest thing is that he's got to stay healthy. But rounding out my list, I also had Christian Benford. One of the best seasons out of the cornerback position last year. We obviously saw how, I don't want to say it was a drastic difference, but, Chiefs kind of got what they wanted once he went out of the game in the AFC Championship last year. Probably shouldn't have been playing in the first place, but, whenever those big playoff games come up, it seems like everybody comes back from concussions pretty quickly. Yeah. But, he was also a big reason that they were comfortable letting the corners that they did let go. Obviously, he also made Kyer Elam expendable, former first-round pick for them. Been excellent. He was excellent the entire season. Was excellent from the start as a rookie. Didn't get that much PT, and then he slowly started, gaining more burns. So, got him rounded out my list, and I'm looking forward to a big season from him as well. Hopefully, with some of the additions that the Buffalo Bills had with Joey Bosa coming over there. So we'll see. Maybe if Von Miller, ends up returning, we'll see. But yeah, I'm rounding out my list with him.
I like it. I mean, we all pretty much got the same, same top guys. At least I feel like 6 of our 10 were at least alike. But I mean, it's good to see like the cornerback position growing. It's growing in money. We see that. Mm-hmm. We see that going with J.C. Horn getting the bag, and he wasn't even on my top 10. So it's like, we'll see how that continues to grow. But I like it.
Yeah, and I mean, we still, one guy that I wanted to get on there was Tyson Campbell, with some of the, obviously the additions that they've had, but couldn't scratch the list just given some of the. I mean, didn't have Jalen Ramsey on my list, top player that would typically be on some people's list. So, Slay, a guy that's probably been on a lot of people's list for the past few years. So it's Shavaris Ward, AJ Terrell, as you mentioned. It's a lot of good corners in the league. So we'll see if Travis Hunter can be the rookie that sneaks in there, or John A. Barron. We'll see how much he actually plays. So, but it's a lot of good corners. A lot of the cornerbacks position is becoming a premium, obviously, with all the receivers that we keep seeing coming in. First year being great. Obviously, we saw 2 receivers last year have a great rookie seasons, and 2 others that we everybody thought was going to be really good. So, quarterbacks becoming more of a hot commodity. We see right now with Jair that he was looking at a few teams. We'll see with Jalen Ramsey once he finally officially gets traded what the word is in terms of teams wanting him. But he might be a little bit of a different situation given his contract, and having a trade. But still, we didn't mention any of the Dallas Cowboys corners either. So it's a lot of good corners, in the league, and we'll see how everything plays out this season. But that gives us a wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. We got the NBA draft tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see some more player movement, and we get to see where these kids land to start their NBA careers. But we will catch you guys next week.
Yes, sir.